He was just 23 years old when he made the worst decision of his life. 10 days into his marriage, Michael stood frozen in the doorway of a basement he had been forbidden to enter, his hands trembling so violently he could barely hold the rusted key. The smell hit him first: iron, decay, something ancient and wrong. Then he saw them. 7 wooden boxes lined against the stone wall, each one carved with a name he did not recognize. But it was the 8th box that made his knees buckle. It was empty, and freshly made. His name was already etched into the lid. He thought he had married a woman who would save him from poverty. Instead, he had walked into a trap 72 years in the making. But who was Margaret really, and what had she been hiding behind that unnaturally youthful smile and those impossibly strong hands? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you, and if you are new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Michael Carter grew up in the kind of poverty that leaves permanent marks on your soul. His father died when he was 9, crushed under a tractor on the farm where he worked for pennies. His mother cleaned houses until her fingers bled, until the arthritis made her hands curl like claws, until she could not work anymore. By the time Michael turned 23, he was drowning in medical bills he could never pay, watching his mother waste away in a bed they would soon lose along with their home. He worked 3 jobs: dishwasher at dawn, construction in the afternoon, gas station attendant through the night. He slept 4 hours if he was lucky. His dreams had shrunk down to something small and desperate. Just keep Mom alive 1 more month, 1 more week, 1 more day. The village of Millbrook sat in a valley where everyone knew everyone's business, where gossip traveled faster than any news, where the church bells rang every Sunday for people who had long stopped believing in miracles. It was the kind of place young people fled from the moment they could afford a bus ticket. Michael had never been able to afford that ticket. Then came Margaret Whitmore, and everything changed. She was 72 years old, but you would never know it by looking at her. Her skin was smooth, almost luminous. Her body was strong, muscular in a way that made men half her age look soft and weak. She drove a black Mercedes, wore designer clothes, and lived alone in the old Whitmore mansion on the hill, the one that had stood empty for decades until she suddenly appeared 5 years ago. No one knew where her money came from. No one dared to ask. She was beautiful in an unsettling way, like a painting that looks almost human, but not quite, and she had chosen Michael. It happened on a Tuesday. Michael was walking home from his construction shift, covered in dust and exhaustion, when he saw the black Mercedes swerve off the road. Without thinking, he ran toward it. The driver's door hung open, and inside, Margaret sat perfectly still, her hands gripping the steering wheel, her eyes closed. A drunk driver had clipped her, then sped away. Michael called for help, stayed with her until the ambulance arrived, rode with her to the hospital, even though he was supposed to start his gas station shift in an hour. The doctors said she was fine, just shaken, but Margaret looked at Michael like he had saved her life, like he was something precious she had been searching for. 2 days later, she appeared at his house with an offer that sounded like madness. She wanted to marry him. She would pay off all his mother's medical bills, buy them a new house, give him more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. All he had to do was be her husband, live with her in the mansion, keep her company. Michael's mother told him not to do it. She said something was wrong with Margaret Whitmore, that the whole village whispered about her, that 3 men had married her over the past 30 years, and all of them had vanished without explanation. But Michael looked at his mother's hollow cheeks, at the eviction notice on the kitchen table, at the empty pill bottles they could not afford to refill, and he said yes. The wedding was small, held in Margaret's garden with only a handful of guests who looked at Michael with pity in their eyes. The village baker, old Thomas, pulled him aside during the reception and whispered, "Boy, you just signed your death warrant. That woman is not what she seems. Her first husband, Richard, disappeared in the middle of the night. So did the second, James. And the third, Anthony. They found his car at the bottom of the ravine, but his body was never inside. You hear me? Never inside. Michael laughed it off. People were jealous, that was all. Margaret had money and power, and small-town folk always turned wealth into witchcraft. But on his first night in the mansion, he noticed things. The way Margaret moved, too fluid, too graceful, like her joints did not quite work the way human joints should. The way she ate, tearing into rare steaks with her hands, blood running down her chin. The way she stared at him while he slept, standing motionless in the corner of their bedroom at 3 a.m. When he asked her about it the next day, she smiled and said, "I was just watching you breathe. I like the sound. It reminds me I am not alone anymore." Her smile did not reach her eyes. The mansion had 40 rooms, but Margaret told him he could only enter 20 of them. The east wing was forbidden, the basement was forbidden, the attic was forbidden. When he asked why, she touched his face with fingers that felt too cold and said, "Because I love you, Michael, and I want to keep you safe." Safe from what? She never said. At night he heard sounds, scratching, whispering, footsteps that were too heavy to be Margaret's, even with her unnatural strength. Once he woke to find the bedroom door wide open, a trail of muddy footprints leading from the hallway to the side of his bed, then back out again. Margaret was asleep beside him, or at least pretending to be. He started asking questions in the village. The answers he got made his stomach turn. Richard Brennan, Margaret's first husband, had been a farmer. Married her in 1994, gone within 6 months. His family filed a missing person report, but no body was ever found. James Sullivan, husband number 2, married her in 2003. Vanished after 8 months. His truck was found abandoned on the highway, keys still in the ignition, wallet and phone left behind. Anthony Torres, the third, married her in 2018. 3 months later, his car went off a cliff. They pulled the wreckage from the ravine, but Anthony was not inside. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just an empty driver's seat and a wedding ring left on the dashboard. The police investigated Margaret each time. Each time she had an alibi. Each time the case went cold. Michael started watching her more carefully. He noticed scars on her back, thick and raised, forming patterns that looked almost like words in a language he did not recognize. He noticed she never ate normal food, only raw meat, only at night, only when she thought he was not looking. He noticed her strength. One evening, the washing machine broke, a massive industrial unit that weighed at least 300 pounds. Michael said he would call a repairman. Margaret walked over, bent down, and lifted it with one hand. Just picked it up like it was made of cardboard. She carried it outside and set it by the curb, then turned to Michael and said, "There. Fixed." Her smile was wide, too wide, and for a moment Michael thought he saw something sharp where her teeth should be. He started having nightmares. In them, he was running through the mansion, chased by something that sounded like Margaret but moved wrong, its limbs bending backward, its voice layered with a dozen other voices, all of them screaming his name. He would wake up soaked in sweat, and Margaret would be there, stroking his hair, whispering, "Shh, my love. You are safe with me. You will always be safe with me." But her eyes were black in the darkness, reflective like an animal's. On the 10th night of their marriage, Michael could not sleep. The sounds from the basement were louder than usual, a rhythmic thumping like something heavy being dragged across stone. Margaret was not in bed. He got up, pulled on his jeans, and crept into the hallway. The mansion was dark, lit only by the moonlight filtering through the tall windows. He followed the sound down the main staircase, through the kitchen, to a door he had never noticed before, hidden behind a pantry shelf. It was slightly ajar. He pushed it open. Stone steps led down into blackness. The smell of iron and decay rushed up to meet him. His heart hammered in his chest, every instinct screaming at him to turn around, to go back to bed, to pretend he had seen nothing. But he could not. He had to know. He descended slowly, each step creaking under his weight. At the bottom, a single bulb flickered, casting jagged shadows across the basement. And there, in the center of the room, was Margaret. But she was not alone. She stood over a stone altar, her back to him, her body tense and rigid. In front of her were the 7 wooden boxes he would later see clearly, each one carved with names: Richard, James, Anthony, and 4 others he did not recognize. They were coffins, small, personal, lovingly crafted, and they were not empty. Through the gaps in the wood he could see bones, skulls, fragments of clothing, wedding rings. Margaret was chanting, her voice low and guttural, words that sounded older than any language Michael had ever heard. The air around her shimmered, and for a moment, just a moment, her body changed. Her skin split open, revealing something underneath, something raw and red and writhing. Then she stopped. She turned her head slowly, too slowly, until she was looking at him over her shoulder. Her eyes were completely black. Her mouth stretched into a smile that split her face nearly in half. "Michael," she said, and her voice was layered with a dozen others, all of them dead men. "You were not supposed to see this yet. You were supposed to last longer. You were supposed to love me first." Michael ran. He bolted up the stairs, through the kitchen, toward the front door. But it would not open. The windows would not break. The house had sealed itself around him. He heard her footsteps behind him, slow and deliberate, each one echoing through the mansion like a death knell. "There is no escaping me, Michael," she called out. "There never was. You are mine now, just like the others, just like all the others." Michael barricaded himself in one of the upstairs bathrooms, shoving a dresser against the door. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely grip his phone. No signal. Of course there was no signal. He tried the window. Locked from the outside, reinforced with bars he had never noticed before. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Silence. Then Margaret's voice, soft and almost sad. "I did not want it to be this way, Michael. I really did care for you. But I am so tired of being alone. Do you understand? I have been alone for so long." Michael pressed his back against the wall, trying to steady his breathing. "What are you?" he whispered. She laughed, a sound like wind through dead trees. "I am old, Michael. Older than this village. Older than the roads and the church and the stories they tell about witches in the woods. I was beautiful once, truly beautiful, and I made a choice. I wanted to stay that way forever. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to never grow old, never grow weak, never die. So I made a deal, but every deal has a price." Michael closed his eyes, his mind racing. "What price?" "A life for a life," she said. "Every 10 years, I must take a husband. I must marry him, bind him to me, and when the time is right, I must take his youth, his strength, his remaining years. That is how I survive. That is how I have survived for 217 years. Michael felt sick. And the others? The men in the basement? "They were not strong enough," Margaret said quietly. "They broke too easily. Their fear consumed them. I tried to make it gentle, Michael, I truly did. But fear makes the process so much harder. It twists the soul, makes it difficult to extract cleanly. You, though, you are different. You are kind. You are good. You will make this so much easier for me." The dresser began to shake. Michael grabbed the towel rack, looking around desperately for something, anything he could use as a weapon. "You do not have to do this," he said. "There has to be another way." "There is no other way," Margaret said. "This is what I am. This is all I have ever been." The door exploded inward, splinters flying across the room. Margaret stood in the doorway, her body flickering between human and something else, something with too many joints and too many teeth. "Please," Michael begged, "please." She reached for him. Michael ducked under her arm and rolled into the hallway, scrambling to his feet. He ran blindly, crashing through doors, knocking over furniture. Behind him, Margaret moved with inhuman speed, her laughter echoing through the house. He found himself in the library, a massive room lined with old books and strange artifacts. In the center of the room was a glass case, and inside it, a dagger. Old, ornate, covered in the same symbols he had seen scarred into Margaret's back. Without thinking, Michael grabbed a chair and smashed the glass. Alarms blared. Margaret appeared in the doorway, her face twisting with rage. "Do not touch that," she snarled. Michael grabbed the dagger. The moment his fingers closed around the handle, he felt it, a surge of energy, of knowledge, flooding into his mind. He saw everything, Margaret's true form, a creature bound by ancient magic. The deal she had made with something dark and hungry, something that lived beneath the earth and fed on stolen lives. The ritual she performed every 10 years, draining her husbands to maintain her youth and strength. And he saw the way to stop her. The dagger was the key. It had been used to seal the original pact, and it could be used to break it. But only if driven into the heart of the one who made the deal. Only if Margaret died by her own weapon. She lunged at him. Michael sidestepped, slashing wildly. The blade caught her arm and she screamed, a sound that shattered every window in the room. Black blood poured from the wound, hissing as it hit the floor. "You cannot kill me," she hissed. "I am eternal." "No," Michael said, his voice steady now. "You are just afraid to die." He drove the dagger into her chest. Margaret froze, her body convulsed, her skin peeling away in sheets, revealing the ancient, withered creature underneath. She reached for him one last time, her voice fading to a whisper. "I just did not want to be alone." Then she crumbled. Her body collapsed into dust, scattering across the library floor. The house shuddered. The walls groaned. And then, silence. Michael stood there, breathing hard, the dagger still clutched in his hand. The basement door swung open on its own. He descended one last time. The coffins were gone. In their place, 7 gravestones, each one bearing a name and a date. Richard Brennan, James Sullivan, Anthony Torres. 4 others he did not know. He said a prayer for each of them. Then he walked out of that house and never looked back. Michael left Millbrook that night. He took nothing with him but the clothes on his back and the memory of what he had seen. The mansion burned down 3 days later. The fire department said it was an electrical fault, but Michael knew better. The house had died with Margaret. His mother recovered. The medical bills were paid, the debt mysteriously cleared. Michael never found out how. He moved to another state, started a new life, took a job as a carpenter. He never married again. Sometimes, late at night, he still heard her voice, soft, sad, lonely. "I just did not want to be alone." And sometimes, he almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then he would remember the coffins, the bones, the names carved in wood, and he would remind himself that some monsters are not born. They are made by choices. Choices to live forever at the cost of others. Choices to take and never give. Choices to love only yourself and call it survival. Margaret Whitmore had lived for 217 years, but she had stopped being human long before Michael ever met her. In every village there are stories that sound too strange to be true. Stories of women who never age, men who vanish without a trace, houses that seem to breathe and watch. Some of those stories are just stories, but some of them are warnings. Warnings that not everything beautiful is good, not everything strong is kind, and not every offer of salvation is what it seems. Michael learned that the hard way. He survived, but 7 others did not. 7 men who thought they had found love, or security, or escape. 7 men who trusted the wrong person and paid with their lives. So ask yourself this. If someone offered you everything you ever wanted, everything you ever needed, would you take it? Would you ask questions, or would you just say yes? And if you did say yes, would you notice the red flags before it was too late? What do you think? Was Margaret a monster, or a victim of her own choices? Was there ever a moment she could have stopped, or was she too far gone? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if this story gripped you, if it made you think, if it made you feel something, hit that like button and subscribe for more mysteries and folktales every week. Because the world is full of stories like this. Stories that remind us to be careful who we trust. Stories that remind us that sometimes the price of survival is too high. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. And remember, not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well.